What's going on, everyone? Today we're going to talk about the electric weekend that just happened in Formula One Grand Prix. I know I'm a little late to this topic, but as I'm looking into it more, I feel like I can provide a little bit more about it. And of course, that topic is Verstappen and Perez and the inter-team conflict that's happening right now in Red Bull that has made its way out to the public, and Red Bull's trying to get their hands around and control the narrative around it. So today we're going to go over what sparked all of this, first off, and then second, what Perez is accused of, because Verstappen says he's not blameless in this whole matter, and then what Red Bull should do about it, if they choose to actually take action, and how they're going to save face from all of this. So let's get right into it. But first, I really appreciate you guys watching. If you like F1 and you like watching F1 content on YouTube, I'm going to keep making it, so it'd mean the world if you hit the subscribe button, and we can grow a little F1 thing here. Now let's get into it. So let me paint the picture for you. Late in the race, Verstappen is ahead of Perez. Of course, you have the two Mercedes in first and second, Russell and then Hamilton. Then you have the Ferraris, Sainz and then Leclerc. Then you have Alonso, good for him. But then you have both Red Bulls. They haven't been having the most fantastic race up until this point, but they're looking to make up what they can. Perez, who obviously is in the heated contested fight for second place in the Drivers' Championship, as we see now how him and Leclerc are both tied at 290 points going into Abu Dhabi, which is just unreal. But Red Bull thinks to themselves, okay, we need to get Perez those points and win not only the constructors, but the drivers. They want to dominate. They want to be, the dominant force in F1. So they do what drivers absolutely hate and say, hey, team orders, we're going to swap you two around, as Perez was trailing Verstappen in the race going into the last one or two laps. So they say that. Verstappen's pit wall crew says, hey, let Perez pass you this lap. Don't fight him. We need those points for second place. He needs to win second place. That, of course, leads Verstappen to just silence. He doesn't say anything until the race is over. You hear over the radio, the pit wall says what happened, and Verstappen says he has his reasons. I've already told you. Don't ever ask me to do that again. Honestly, kind of showing that this is his team and he can just get away with what he wants. And I don't think that there's going to be any consequences to that. Verstappen is a huge reason for Red Bull's success. Obviously, they've made phenomenal F1 cars, especially recently, but Verstappen has kind of been the face of Red Bull. And he kind of cashed that in this weekend, saying, I'm going to do what I want and there's nothing you can do about it. So Max Verstappen does not let Perez pass him. This kind of speaks to, Perez is an older driver. He has had a lot more experience in F1 than Verstappen has, and racing in general. Just with age, that's what happens. And you kind of see this Max Verstappen hit really early success in F1 and has this really comes off as cocky and arrogant and just not afraid to show you that, he thinks he's the shit when it comes to racing, all things racing, which, he kind of is, because the car and him are, good, but he's not afraid to let you know it. So right there you have some inter-team conflict, and it might get you thinking. Max Verstappen said, he has his reasons. He's already told you. What could those reasons be? Now let's get into that. That's point number 2, and where Perez comes into play. So this is something that I had no clue, and obviously being in the States, I wouldn't know this all that much, but there are two or a few Dutch journalists that are really in the Verstappen camp. And the two-time world champion, according to those journalists, believe that Perez intentionally crashed at the end of qualifying in Monaco earlier this year in order to start ahead of Verstappen. So Perez would have qualified first, which he did, because he crashed going into one of the turns, and actually went on to win the race when Verstappen then ended up starting third that race. And you got to think back to Monaco when the two were actually kind of close in points. Verstappen hadn't ran away with it yet. The Red Bull was still having some reliability issues. So really at that point, it was still anyone's championship. And that's kind of one of the reasons to believe that, hey, Perez might have done this on purpose to solidify his qualifying position. Now, personally, I think if you cause a red flag in qualifying, you should get moved to the back of whatever, Q1, Q2, Q3 you're in. So in this case, Perez should have started 10th. That's what I think should happen. I know people have been talking about that, how if you cause the red flag in qualifying, ruining everybody else's qualifying, your qualifying should be ruined. That, to me, just makes perfect sense. So I would like to see that get implemented. So it's important to paint a picture, in Perez's mind. Remember, a week earlier than Monaco in Spain is when that famous radio message, everyone thinks, oh man, Perez is a good guy, because they said, we're going to let Verstappen pass. And he said, I don't agree, but okay. Look, I think Perez comes off as this sweet, team-oriented, phenomenal driver, as he is a phenomenal driver. And Max always comes off as this, selfish driver who's really, he helps the team by helping himself, basically. That's what I'll say about Verstappen. So Perez had moved over to let Verstappen win the Spanish Grand Prix and disagreed, but said okay. And then the thinking is he went into Monaco the next weekend thinking, all right, I gave him his, now I'm going to get mine. That's kind of one possible way you could look at this if you think Perez did this on purpose. So usually in Q3, drivers get 2 attempts, at a fast flying lap. And it's important to look at when all this is going on, how it is all speculation. And again, if you've gone on Twitter, you'll see everybody and their mother seems like they're trying to figure out different ways by looking at telemetries and onboards and trying to figure out everything. The main one I saw going around is from this Twitter account right here, F1 Data Analysis. It's actually thorough, but I feel like most people reading it, I don't know, nothing about any of this. So is it true? It sounds intriguing, I'm sure someone who knows what they're talking about would actually be able to say more, but I encourage you to go through this F1 Data Analysis thread where they talk about, throttle, especially compared to his previous lap in Q3. He did something completely different, as you can see here. This was his first, this was his first, or the lap of the crash, while this was the telemetry of something else in the previous lap. Look, it's confusing. Did he actually do it? It's hard to tell. Each lap is different. Drivers strive for that perfection, but Perez's and Red Bull's outward claim was that the rears were going. So when he slipped around, he had to, overcorrect his steering and whatever it may be, whatever excuse, they want to use to say that it was a genuine accident. So then after all this, according to, I guess, 2 people named Van Haren and Viaplay's Tom Cornell, at the next race in Baku, Perez admitted to both Christian Horner and Helmut Marko that he had intentionally crashed. ESPN, though, I'm kind of getting a lot from this article, says they've been unable to confirm whether that admission by those 2 people actually took place. So it's a lot of hearsay, it's a lot of, you hear argument from this side and this side, and you kind of see, what you believe, make for yourself. It's one of those things where I think at a gut feeling, a lot of people don't see Perez doing this. Again, they see him as that sweet, kind driver, but also, to be an F1, you have to have that dog spirit in you. You have to be able to be competitive at, the highest level. And Perez obviously has that if he's here in this level of F1 and, top of the field fighting for second. So, maybe it's tough to tell. I still don't even really know what the deal is, but I will say, whether or not this happened, whether or not Perez intentionally crashed in Monaco, Perez has helped Verstappen in the past heavily. Perez is the only reason Verstappen has his first driver's championship in Abu Dhabi when he was defending Hamilton. Perez was defending Hamilton. He pushed Hamilton back around 7 or 8 seconds in the race, which is Perez is the reason Verstappen has one driver's championship to his name. So the correct decision would be for Verstappen to have let Perez through. That's clear. Whether or not, Perez crashed on purpose in Monaco. Get to Red Bull. This is, the PR team's worst nightmare. It's just the dirty laundry is being aired out in public. Verstappen is showing some true colors. If this comes out to be true about Perez, then he's showing some true colors. I think that it's really ironic how Max Verstappen, on the same day this was happening, and F1 Twitter was just going off about Verstappen, about how, he's just selfish and terrible to not let Perez through, that he was GQ's like sportsman of the year or something like that, which is just such a funny irony. But as far as Red Bull's official stance, Christian Horner says Red Bull has resolved its Brazil, team radio controversy, saying, and I quote, "It's a straight fight between Checo and Charles, and if Max can help in any way, he will." Kind of showing Red Bull saying, hey, look, we're on top. It's not Max running the show. It's Red Bull running the show. So is this really the end? Is Red Bull going to be able to get these two drivers on the same level as, their outward appearance was the rest of the season? Because what you think is, they're buds, they're pals. But, apparently that hasn't been the case. We all know that when drivers on the same team start to butt heads and battle each other, it's a disaster. Team crashes are the worst type of crash that can happen in F1. So will Red Bull be able to keep a handle on it? I want to hear your thoughts. If you have any, please drop them down in the comments. I'm sure everyone has an opinion on this so far. So I don't think that the whole drama of this situation is over, and I think it'll just continue. As this is literally anything that anyone could talk about at the moment in the F1 world. Appreciate you watching. As always, go Ferrari, rooting for Leclerc in Abu Dhabi to take home second. I mean, what a transformation they've had from last year to this year, making their way to the top. So appreciate you watching. Catch you next time.